Are you a business owner who journals but never actually reviews those entries? Because honestly, who has 3 hours to sit and synthesize their own thoughts? If so, I built an automation that takes all my journal entries from the week and sends them to Claude AI and gives me a comprehensive business analysis in about 2 minutes. And I'm going to show you exactly how this works using my actual journal and real results. Plus, I'll show you where you can grab the complete workflow template at the end of this video. I'm Rob Fernango from the AI Growth Accelerator. Let's dive in. Look, here's the thing about journaling as a business owner. Everyone tells you to do it. Track your progress, reflect on challenges, identify patterns. And they're right, it's really valuable. But then what? You've got 7 days of journal entries sitting there. Maybe you wrote about bottlenecks on Tuesday or pricing decisions on Thursday, maybe customer clarity struggles on Friday. Who's actually going to go back through all of that to pull out the patterns, to connect the dots between Tuesday's workflow problem and Friday's strategic confusion? Nobody. Because that's just another 2 to 3 hours you don't have. So here's what I built. This is my actual synthesis from last week. Claude analyzed my daily journal entries, my weekly reviews, even my previous month's synthesis to track progress, and it gave me this comprehensive analysis organized by business themes. And at the end of this video, I'll tell you exactly where you can get access to this workflow template, so be sure to keep watching. I built this system in Make.com. Now, to be clear, I'm an affiliate of Make.com, so if you purchase a subscription through the link in the description below, I'll receive some compensation. But the same kind of system could be built in Zapier or N8N or any other integration platform. I just think Make.com is fantastic, and it is my preference. I wouldn't be an affiliate any other way. So here's how the system works at a high level. I've got 3 data sources feeding into this automation, and I have to give a big shout out to Michael Hyatt and his Full Focus Planner and Full Focus Journal for the prompts that I use. I'm not affiliated with the Full Focus Planner or Michael Hyatt, and I don't receive any financial compensation for this, but I find the system extremely helpful for me. There are plenty of other journaling frameworks that you can use, and this AI workflow will work with all of them. So here's the workflow. First, I begin by setting up a few variables that include templates for my daily journal entry questions, the prompts, and the weekly reviews that I do. Then I get into my daily journal entries from the last 7 days. These are the day-to-day reflections and what I'm grateful for, what obstacles I hit, what I learned, and what I accomplish. Second, I get into my weekly reviews from the last month. Now, these are deeper strategic reflections using the Getting Things Done framework and the weekly reviews from the Full Focus framework. And then third, I also grab the previous month's AI synthesis, and this is key. See, this creates a feedback loop where Claude can track whether I'm actually making progress based on the action items and recommendations that it gave me in previous weeks. Now, all 3 of these sets of data get pulled from OneNote, aggregated, and then they're sent to Claude with a very specific analysis prompt. Claude does the synthesis, then writes it back to OneNote as a new page and emails me when this is done. The whole thing runs automatically every morning at 8 a.m., and it takes about 2 minutes depending on how much I've written that week. Now, the real magic here isn't the workflow structure, it's what we tell Claude to do with all the data. So this is the actual prompt that I send to Claude, and I'm scrolling through it now so you can see just how detailed it actually is. Now, a lot of people will just ask the AI to do something like summarize my journal, and that's useless. You're going to get generic garbage back like, you had a productive week, keep it up. But at the beginning of this prompt, we tell Claude how the input data is going to be structured. We then tell it what frameworks to use for the analysis, things like focusing on mindset and well-being, obstacles and challenges, growth and learning. Then look at this section here. I'm forcing Claude to distinguish between evidence-based observations and speculation. Look at this part in line 82. You struggled with time management is weak, whereas time management challenges appeared in 4 or 5 daily entries with specific examples is strong. And that's the difference between AI as a cheerleader and an AI business analyst. And I've structured the analysis around 6 specific business themes: mindset and well-being, obstacles and challenges, growth and learning, strategy and action, progress and achievements, and forward planning. Finally, we give it specific tone and style guidance, as well as critical must-follow rules that Claude has to obey. But here's what really matters. Does it actually work? Let me show you 2 insights from my actual results that I could have easily missed when I was writing these journal entries. Okay, first insight. I'd been struggling all week trying to figure out what my ideal customers actually want when it comes to AI and automation services. And at the same time, I was wrestling with pricing decisions for one-on-one consulting. How much should I charge? How do I structure it? And what services do I offer? Well, I couldn't decide, so I wasn't really prospecting, and I wasn't having enough customer conversations as a result. Well, Claude caught something I didn't see. You see, you can't prospect without deciding on your services, and you can't validate customer needs without prospecting. You can't decide on services without customer validation. And that's the circular dependency. I was spinning my wheels on 3 separate problems that were actually one problem with 3 different symptoms. And it's the kind of strategic insight that you miss when you're in the weeds of daily operations. Now here's the second insight, and this one was brutal but valuable. I recently switched video editing tools. I went from Camtasia Studio, which I know really well, to DaVinci Resolve for better quality. But I was frustrated because editing now took me 6 hours for a 10-minute video instead of 2 hours like I used to do with Camtasia. Well, Claude identified this pattern, and it ended up telling me you switch to a more powerful tool before mastering efficient production. And what this did was create a capacity crisis. That hit hard. I added a 200% time penalty to my workflow by switching tools before I had efficient processes in place. I was chasing better quality before I had efficient production. And once Claude pointed this out, I realized I could probably apply the same pattern thinking to other areas of my business. Am I optimizing things that should just be working efficiently first? Look, if you're finding this valuable, do me a favor and hit that like button real quick. It tells YouTube to show this to other business owners who might need it. And if you want more practical AI automation like this in your feed, no hype, just workflows that actually work, hit the subscribe button as well. All right, let me show you what this workflow actually looks like when it runs. When the workflow kicks off Monday morning, here's what happens. First, the sequence pulls a set of variables. It creates a set of variables using a tool where I tell it what the template questions are for my daily entries and my weekly entries. Then in the first sequence of data pulls, we pull my daily journal entries. We list all the pages in my daily journal section of OneNote and filter them only to the last 7 days. Then we grab the content from each page of those 7 journal entries and combine them into a single text block using a text aggregator tool. In the second sequence, then, we do the same thing with the weekly reviews for the last 30 days, pulling the pages, listing them out from OneNote, then getting the page content for the weekly reviews in the last month, and aggregating all the content using a tool, text aggregator. And then in the third sequence, we pull the previous month's syntheses from the last month so that Claude can track my progress. We list those syntheses out. We get the page content for each of those pages that Claude provided in prior analyses, and then we aggregate them together using a text aggregator. All 3 text blocks get sent to Claude along with that analysis prompt that we looked at previously. Claude generates the synthesis in HTML format and writes it back to OneNote as a new page in my weekly synthesis section. And finally, it sends me an email saying, hey, your weekly synthesis is ready. Check the weekly synthesis section in OneNote, and here's the page name that I used for the page that was added. The whole thing runs in about 2 minutes. I wake up Monday morning, check my email, open OneNote, and I've got a comprehensive business analysis of my entire week waiting for me. Now let's talk about what this actually means for your business. The obvious benefit, you're getting 3 hours back every week. This is time you'd spend reviewing journal entries, looking for patterns, and synthesizing your insights. But here's what makes this so much more valuable than just time savings. You're getting better insights than you'd get by doing it manually. Because when you're reviewing your own journal entries, you're still in the weeds. You wrote those entries. You lived those days, and it's hard to step back and see the patterns objectively. That's where Claude catches the circular dependencies, the pattern connections across different days, the strategic observations that only become clear when something is looking at your week from a 30,000-foot view while you're down in the weeds. So this synthesis gave me explicit action items from my own entries. things I literally wrote down but didn't process as action items in the moment. It gave me suggested actions based on patterns, things I should be doing that I hadn't really even thought about to write down. And it compared this week's performance to last week's, tracked my habit streaks, and identified what improved and what regressed. So you're saving 3 hours and getting analysis that you could easily miss if you did spend those 3 hours reviewing it manually. Now, that's the difference between journaling for therapy and journaling for business growth. Both are valuable, but if you're running a business, you need the strategic analysis, not just the emotional release. So what will you actually need to build something like this? Well, you'll need Make.com. That's the automation platform I'm using. The free account works for this if you're just going to run it on a weekly basis. Then you'll need a note-taking app with automation capabilities. I use OneNote, but you could adapt this to Notion or Evernote or anything else that connects with Make.com or similar automation platforms. You'll need a Claude API account. That's at anthropic.com/API. And the API costs are minimal for something like this. We're talking maybe a couple bucks a month, depending on how much you write. And of course, you could connect this workflow to ChatGPT or Gemini or any other LLM model you have. And of course, you need to have your journaling system already set up. The daily entry structure, the weekly review format, and whatever works for your business. Now, if you've got all of that already set up, and you're comfortable with Make.com and you want to build this yourself, you can absolutely do that with the workflow template I'm going to give you in a second. But let's be real. Most people see this and think, I want those results, but I don't want to figure out how to do all those moving parts and set everything up. And if that's you, if you want this working for your business without spending hours on setup and troubleshooting, that's exactly what we walk through in the AI Growth Accelerator membership. We do this in a live workshop. We customize it for your journaling style, and you'll have it running by the end of the day. But either way, here's how you can get started. I've put together the complete Make.com workflow template for this automation, and you can grab it for free. Just go to f1analytics.com/journal. You'll get the full workflow template, the same one I'm using here, plus instructions on how to set it up in your own Make.com account. Now, in full transparency, you'll still need to configure it for your specific OneNote structure and connect your Claude API. The template gives you the blueprint, but you'll still need to customize it for your setup. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.